Hello, and welcome back to the Argyle HR Technology Leadership Forum. My name is Brittany Sullivan with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we will turn the floor over to our esteemed keynote speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which includes complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker, Wagner Danuzzo, Vice President of Organizational Effectiveness at Prudential. We're excited to have Wagner with us for his keynote titled Future of HR for the Digital Workplace. Thank you, Wagner, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Hi, everyone. Really nice to be here with you because you already had several sessions on the topic of HR technology and how we can create a workplace that is really successful for everyone involved. So I hope what I have to present is going to continue to add to your understanding of what's going to be the future of HR. I think we're all anticipating changes, but the reality is the future of work, it's here. I was hired at Prudential as the head of capabilities for future of work in 2019. At that time, we were beginning to think, this was pre-pandemic, we were thinking about talent marketplaces and all that. I implemented that immediately as I arrived, and was amazing what a tool and a platform like that could do for you for internal mobility, for employee education, and employee self-worth. So we can talk a little bit more about the talent marketplace when I get there. But what you can see here, the manager experience is a really key issue right now, because the workplace, workforce are transforming, and managers are struggling to navigate those shifts. That's why it's going to be so important for us to create an environment, an ecosystem in HR where not only employees, but managers also feel comfortable dealing with all that's happening, the internal, external factors, the leadership burnout. I saw in other sessions, people talked about that. And in fact, I was talking to 60 CHROs last week, and they confirmed leadership burnout is a reality. We asked them to be exceptional superpower people, super roles, right? Superpower roles that they played during the pandemic. And now the hybrid workplace is challenging them as well. So employees now are reconsidering everything. I don't know how you feel about this, but I believe the employees are much more aware of what their choices are and how they can make the best choices for their lives, knowing that now there's options. I think before the pandemic, we had less options for people to decide for themselves what they want to do in terms of work. But I think now we open this ecosystem in which people are thinking, what are the components of these new environments that I want to participate in? And that's very important. The technology, we are going to talk about this. It's funny that I was listening to Jim just before, and on Friday, somebody asked about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is here to stay. And I was talking to a colleague of mine on Friday. All of us have been discussing what is this future of workplace looks like in the hybrid. So I just asked ChatGPT, what are the leadership skills needed for the hybrid workforce? That was my question. And it came up with communication, adaptability, empathy, collaboration, organization, trust, and technology skills. It was almost mirrored of what Jim was talking about. What are the skills that we need to develop? Except for creativity, influencing, and driving performance. Those are the three that the ChatGPT didn't have. But it's amazing what this technology is doing. Basically, I asked a question, and it brought me the essential skills needed for me to relate to managers, how to manage a hybrid workforce. Things that would take days for us to source and discuss and all that. So I would say this. People say why AI is important. AI is important not to guide your decisions. I don't believe it's about decision making only. It's about understanding the context you're in. Because a friend of mine also asked ChatGPT, can we expect the same level of attrition this year than we had last year? And ChatGPT simply said, I don't know your industry or your company, so it's hard for me to understand the variables that comprise your attrition. That was amazing. So it is amazing how what I say here is what I always say, clarity creates capacity. Instead of confusing people, lack of direction, some scholars even just said, they said it's more important that leaders have consistency in how they approach the hybrid workplace than having an opinion. So the number of days or the number of days off, the number of days at home, it doesn't matter if leaders don't align with their thought. What's important is to have clarity about what's expected. Could be 2 days or 3 days, doesn't matter, but you need to be clear. Clarity creates capacity because then employees are not discussing rumors. People are not discussing their confusion. They are not losing time, fearful of not understanding where we are going. So all the capacity that we use in our brains to try to figure it out things can be saved by creating clarity and creating capacity from it. So I hope we understand that. Of course, I asked those CHROs last week, what are you thinking that's keep you up at night? And this is what they came up with: talent planning, recruiting, retention, training, employee. So clearly, we're all focused on retention of the best talent, planning for the talent ahead. Recruitment continues to be a source of stress, and the employee experience itself. But I hope, and you can disagree with me, and we can talk about this on the chat. But I think the new workforce is very clear what's happening. The new workforce is distributed, is dynamic. Why? Because gone are the days that people enter a company for the lifetime, right? We know this. This was already happening 10 years ago. So they're dynamic. We need a talent strategy that's dynamic. A talent strategy, if you think about the half-life of a skill, is 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The half-life of the employee tenure is 3 years. You have the first few years to engage the person into buying into your culture and creating some impact. The second year is for developing that person and showing them that there is a future in your organization. The third year is when that person is going to make decisions about, do I stay or do I go for the next? It's very important that we feel comfortable with that, because there is nothing wrong in people deciding to create variety and diversify their career pathways. Because the reality is we don't have room at the top for everyone. There is no opportunity for everybody to advance in terms of levels. So we need to be very good in using AI, using all the tools available, including working with managers, to understand in these 3 years, how can I identify the people who are booming and blooming to be superstars? Who are the hidden figures who are shy, we may not have noticed because they're shy, they have a different style. So we have to be very focused on how dynamic our strategies have to be. No longer thinking about 5 to 10 years from now. Let's think from now to 3 years so we can really engage employees. So they're distributed, dynamic, they're diverse, we know that. They're digital. That's why our managers, our leaders have to be digitally dexterous. So digital dexterity is really important for all of us. And discerning. The last one is really important. Discerning. Why? Because I think employees are making judgments and discerning and having discernment about what they're willing to do, how they want to do it, where they want to do it, with whom they want to do this work. And it's important for us to experience that as a mutually agreed relationship between employers and employee. Skilled workers are reinventing their careers, right? They're making decisions about their work arrangements. They're making decisions about everything. So I hope you understand the 5 Ds of this new workforce, because this is really important. Now, of course, we need to discuss how do we create teams that are high-performing teams. At Prudential, we chose to not start throwing so much content at people, but we said, you know what? Teams are effective when all members of the team take the accountability to create a healthy environment for everyone, psychological safety, and your teams are self-managing towards an outcome. So I can tell you about Prudential, for example. After our transformation, first 2 years, we created during that transformation the team that I call Talent Catalysts. Talent Catalysts are ready to do work design, org design, skills assessments, talent strategy, redesigning the workflow, skills, and all that, and change management. So they're fungible talent pool that I have that goes to businesses to address where they are in the maturity level of their transformation. Some wants just a skills assessment, some wants an org design, some wants a leadership design, some wants just a reskilling, upskilling of their folks. So teams are working cross-functionally. Most companies have these cross-functional teams working where the needs are. And that's very good because it's the agile way of working, becoming part of the culture of how we do work in the future. So these teams, is very important for us to understand, they need to make decisions. So this is the 6 conversations. We said instead of giving content, we are going to curate conversations. How do we ask the questions? How do we prepare people to have these conversations? So those are conversations that any team member can bring to the team because they're valuable. When a new team is formed, new work, new norms, something's not working, instead of like trying to guess how to address, we have guidance on how you can start bringing up different subjects to the team. We also have, are we doing the right thing, right work? That's about prioritization. How many of us goes through teamwork and we know that the prioritization needs to be done, but nobody says anything? So it's very important to start prioritizing. We need to make a decision. Decision making is really difficult. At Prudential, we are implementing a new model. Is going to be really helpful because it allows people to make decisions closer to their customers. What did we learn? Working together, what have we learned about teaming and getting to high performance? And what's changing when we notice that something's changing and there are new strategies, we change direction. It's important to have those conversations. So all I'm saying here is you need to start addressing the work unit of value as a team. So no longer you have a manager in their verticals with their intact teams doing the work in isolation. I think what you see more often is that managers have to be attuned to what's happening around, assigning their talent towards the mission that's needed. That's why you have the gig economy. That's why we create the talent marketplaces. That's why you see a lot of strategy changing to this dynamic way of working. So the employee experience, for example, it needs to be about well-being and clarity of purpose. Manager capability, I think more than ever, managers have to be career coaches and sense makers. They need to sense of what's happening in the environment, in the ecosystem, coach their people to be at their best, and coach them for their careers. Because managers, at least in large organizations, are not managing the work day to day, because those are agile teams, are teams that are working and they're managing themselves really well. Career management. This is all about empowerment. You had today the super personal, hyper personalization session. When we personalize the experience of the employee, we are giving them all the tools. So we need to empower them to make decisions for themselves, and the learning tools have to be available to them. Strategic workforce planning allows businesses to start thinking from now to 3 years from now, what are the skills that are going to be evolving, emerging? What are the skills that are declining? And what are the talent pools available? Why do I talk about talent pools? The workforce is composable. going forward, we can't just rely on hiring, then firing. It's not sustainable. A great high-performing workforce will be comprised of independent workers, about teams. I mean, the advisory board for A team, they provide you a team to do the design of products, development of the products, and it's really cool what they do because they are building capabilities for your in-house team, but at the same time, they're accelerating the go-to-market products that you might have. So it's a very good solution for organizations that can hire everybody for the long term, but we can address talent pools that could come in and out, and we have an open source, an open ecosystem to work with. I think that's the future of workforce. And the talent development is we need to rely on analytics. We need to rely on internal mobility. Since we introduced the talent marketplace at Prudential, for example, we educated people on skills that are transferable. We educated them on how the AI works to recommend work for them, the skills ontology versus the taxonomy, all this came into being. And we improved internal mobility by 11 points. So it's very important to educate people, empower them to seek a new organization or a new path for their careers, and really encourage them to think that their skills are transferable. I think that works really well for people who leave the workplace and come back, for people who are not totally skilled in what they want to do. And the talent marketplace became a community. So what I'm trying to say is that you use technology to create community. So the new workplace is a community where all members of this community have access. And I'm going to say access is the point of equity. Equity in opportunity and access to grow, not equity of experiences, because people have personalized experience. People have so many different contexts in their lives. The LGBT community is very different from the Black community, from the Asian community, from the multi-generational communities that we have in the workplace. The differently able community is emerging as very successful community. So you need to bet that the equity is in the opportunity and access to jobs, opportunities for gigs to gain more experience, learning to get the skills that you need. And at Prudential, we have career services. I think we're one of the first companies that have up to 3 sessions a year. You can talk confidentially with a counselor about your career, about what the options are and the opportunities in the company. So I think this is really what I'm talking about, is comprising and creating an ecosystem that really works together for us. So the role of HR, simply here, because we don't have much time left, but I want to tell you this, is to create the conditions that employees can do their best work and deliver through outcomes aligned with strategy, of course, but I think that's the role of HR, is not to build programs, process, and policies. That we can do, and ChatGPT can do it better than we do. But our role is to create the conditions in which the psychological safety, in which the teams feel comfortable doing the work that they do, and people feel that there is an opportunity to grow. So that said, our challenge is to build a flexible workforce. What are the elements of the workforce that we need? Full-time employees, contractors, consultants, or maybe outsourced, or maybe the independents when they come and go. Design a dynamic talent strategy, because the talent reviews, the process of performance management, all of them have a purpose. But if you're more dynamic, you need to think about how can I gain the trust of these employees to accelerate their growth and their learning without so many cycles and annual cycles that actually are very slow. Develop critical organizational capabilities, the capability of identification of top talent, the critical organizational capability to create mobility internally. So you need to think end to end. Like work design is a capability that we need to develop, because with all the automation that's happening, everything coming, we need to start designing work differently. We need to change the hierarchy. We need to change the way we organize working processes. So that's a gap that we have, the capability of work design. I think that's very important. And then the skills, we need all those skills that ChatGPT and Jim talked about, but we need sense making, understand what's happening outside, bring it in, systems thinking, because everything now is in an ecosystem. And we need to start thinking that systems, when you change something, impacts other systems. And collective leadership. We need to commit to a more collective goal setting, collective purpose, because all leaders have the goal to create clarity for that capacity to emerge. So I say this because this might be very helpful to you. When you think about technology for you, think about these three systems. This last thing I'm going to tell you. The three systems are systems of record, building the architecture of accurate data, like some people have Workday, you might have other systems, but designing APIs that this data can be sourced for the systems of insights is very important. So self-service for the workforce in systems of record, I prefer to call it direct access. When you tell managers and employees they have direct access to the information they need, is better than self-service or share services. That became a little sour in the organizations. So think about direct access. You're giving people direct access to what they need. Systems of insights. At Prudential, we have Vizier, but analytics is very important. But analytics by itself is no use. You need to start building hypotheses. We need to start using questions, because the AI, the insights that you gain are really important, but without a purpose, it's just data. And systems of engagement, we fail terribly, because actually we need a system of engagement where employees know where the community interacts, how they can be connected to each other. Teams is good, but it's not enough, because everything should be in a systems of engagement where people always know where to go. They always know where to find. They always know where the community meets. So the talent marketplace, for us at least, became this system of engagement. So think about that, because the employee experience, like the business, is now a platform, and it's a digital platform. I leave you with this because sometimes we are very reactive, and this might help us come down while we are looking for questions. So Brittany, if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Wagner, for such an insightful presentation. We did have quite a few questions come through, so we can go ahead and take some of those. This first question asks, how can we better serve managers who are handling all different types of employees, such as hybrid, remote?
Yeah, I think the first thing, think about how learning happens. We all have the platforms. If you think about it, look, I'm trying to lose weight. If it was that simple, you send me to a platform where I read about weight loss and the nutrition, and I would be perfectly able to do it. But human beings are not like this, right? How do you learn? You learn through conversations, observation, chatting, dialogue. So coaching circles. Coaching circles, I'm about to propose this at Prudential. We have coaching circles for high potentials, and all the VPs in HR have coaching circles addressing decision-making, collaboration, career growth, and all that. But imagine if you place managers in coaching circles where it's confidential and safe, where the facilitators start helping each other. How do they coach each other through navigating the difficult moments, what I call moments of impact? At IBM, we have moments of impact. The first day of work, first day in a class or in a client, dealing with personal difficulties or personal crises, dealing with failure, dealing with celebrating milestones, all the things that you can possibly see happening for an employee. Managers together discussing how to handle is much better than sending them to a platform to learn. Well, if the managers are going through this, you should do this. Yeah, easy said than done. So what I'm trying to say is, try to create something that's co-created with your managers. Try to bring the managers that have different workforces in different arrangements together, and let's help them co-create what would be like to manage this more efficiently. I think that works beautifully.
Excellent. Thank you. And this next question says that they found that engagement between managers and their reports has dropped quite a bit, especially during COVID, post-COVID. So they thought about having one day where each department all must be in the office at once together. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on this?
Yes, because it's not about what you do, it's how you approach it. So I have at Prudential, somebody just called me, the head of our facilities and all that. They want to do a culture month in April. I think that's a good idea because it can be just an event or an episodical thing. You need to create a purpose around it. So they created a culture month. They're going to ask people to come to the office 2 or 3 times a week, but they are going to have a schedule, a lot of things, well-being, for example, volunteering, bringing the community. So telling a group of managers that they need to ask their employees to come is great. But you know that managers sometimes collude with employees where you might say, oh, they want me to ask you to come. You cannot let that happen. So leaders have to be very authentic about the ask. I believe we can grow our expertise, our experiences, and grow our commitment to our clients and our work when we come together with meaningful experiences. So let's make these meaningful experiences happen, even if it's just 1 week. This week, we're going to focus on ourselves. We're going to focus on how to grow our relationships. Be honest about why you're bringing people in, because the whole narrative, sorry to say, but the whole narrative, people collaborated better in person. It's better for people to mentor each other in person. It's better to, yeah, we all know what's better. But the reality is we are not creating the conditions for everybody to feel that they're participating, because guess what? We all hired people outside the commuting distance, and we need to apply better judgment. Critical thinking is going to be very important. So to make a long story short, bring people, but make it meaningful. Because I ask you this, before pandemic, how many days in a year were memorable for you in the office? Really think about this. How many memorable experiences you had in one full year coming every day to the office? Probably 2 or 3. So make those 2 or 3 when you bring people to the office. Make like once a quarter or every 2 quarters. Bring people. It's meaningful. So I leave you with that idea.
It's great. Thank you so much. And then this next question asks, what are some ways to change the HR team's mindset regarding use of technology and HR when they are so entrenched in the day-to-day transactional work?
Oh, I know it's difficult. You need to be empathic towards ourselves, each other, ourselves too, because what I say is self-acceptance. We need to accept that we have gaps in our thinking. We need to accept that we have assumptions. We need to accept that we are judgmental like everybody else, and we have biases. But our bias is towards conducting what we need to do, the business of HR. However, I think what would be really cool if we start engaging each other in thinking, how might we have better experiences with our clients? How might we create better experiences? Because the transactional work is going to be there. But to be honest, I think automation can take care of some. We can simplify processes, performance management, all that. Sometimes it becomes this burdensome process. Actually, it could be a little easier. So what I say is engage your HRBPs and all HR in saying, could we do something better together? Could we operate in a way that actually our knowledge could be interdependent, and actually we can create something even better if we work together? Because that collective leadership that I told you about is not only for the business. I think HR needs to be more collective because the silos are not working.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And it looks like we have time for at least one last question.
Sure.
This next question asks, with the understanding of the new workforce, how do we prepare and coach our managers and leadership team to recruit and retain talent?
You know, I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I'm still a licensed psychotherapist in New York, and I start my career as a psychotherapist, social worker. So that's why I came to HR later. And understanding human behavior is really important for HR right now, and for managers and for leaders, because the first thing we do is to protect ourselves and try not to be hurt. So what I'm trying to say is managers, for example, they need to apply a lot of empathy, but they need to accept in themselves that they are probably protecting their own feelings when they avoid connecting with people. Retention is about the courage to be fully attuned to what's happening with employees and to witness some difficult times and to bear witness of a lot of suffering sometimes and painful experience people have at home and in their lives is very hard. I was talking to a manager who said, I don't know why they can't get over it. Just get over it. It's like, yeah, I know that you're saying that because you're fearful of getting in touch with how painful it is to actually look at somebody and see how painful it is their lives. So I start there because we need to start talking about this empathy, an inside out process. But what you can is like ChatGPT told you, like collaboration, communication, all this, but it's not about the process. I think what we fail is telling, oh, you should do this. Is this to tell what people should do? It's about, hey, how is it going? What are the key issues that are happening to you? Ask managers to come to workshops to co-create the ways of managing the new workforce. We can't do this ourselves in HR. Bring the managers in, ask them, how might we create a better management system for our employees? So I think co-creation is going to be the secret of success.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again, Wagner, for such an insightful presentation. And thank you everyone who joined us for this fantastic keynote. This session, along with all of today's content, will be made available on demand following the event. Thank you again, Wagner.
Thank you, everyone.